Hey, 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 it is Eric Arnold, and we're back in the politics barn for the conclusion of my analysis about the Joe Rogan, Dr. Robert Malone interview that's generated so much press, noise, buzz, what have you. What is it? It's early morning on the Thursday, the 6th of January. Very important day. Second birthday of the studio, the politics barn, or more commonly, the sports barn. Happy birthday to 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 the sports barn. Yep, it was 2 years ago today that I first started making these videos. So, yeah, okay. Jokes aside, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, at any rate, we're not here to talk sports. We're here to talk politics, and that is the topics are the conclusion of the Robert Malone interview with Joe Rogan. Thanks. First episode we put up there of that, very popular. Upwards of 270 views, which is about 10 times what I normally get, which is good because I hate to think that I'm gambling getting kicked off of YouTube, censored by YouTube for 15 views. That would just suck. I mean, that was basically the video that got me kicked off the first time. I think had all about 12 views, and they just kicked me off. It's like, what are you doing that for? I mean, no one saw it anyway. And of course, no one saw it. What are you doing that for? They never tell you. In case you're new, and I keep harping on this because it's important to me, and is one of the reasons why I keep making these videos, is that YouTube has already censored me, hauled down one of my videos for speaking about topics that we're speaking about right now. So frankly, I'm surprised that very first episode I did about the Malone Rogan interview was not taken down yet. I think at some point it will be taken down. I noted they have all my source, the entire video that was posted on YouTube of the interview, which I have linked in that previous video I made. That's been taken down for copyright reasons. Although I looked for the interview on Joe Rogan's channel, and I couldn't find it. So I found that suspicious. I mean, in other words, you telling me Joe Rogan posts every video on his channel on YouTube, but he just didn't post that one for some reason? Or did YouTube take that down, like everyone said they have? So, get this one early before, I get suspended for whatever I get suspended by the YouTube speech Nazis. I don't want to get kicked off YouTube because I want to reach some of these people, and I don't want to just preach to the choir. And, I go over to Rumble and I'll speak in a vacuum. There's no one there. Oh, there will be eventually, because we independent, libertarian, conservative thinkers will all be forced over there. The tech monopoly will force us over there, and then we'll talk in our little echo chamber, and you lockdownistas, you can talk in your little echo chamber, and sooner or later we'll have a fight because there'll be no one in the middle left to mediate. Sort of like, the United States Civil War. So that's why I want to stay on YouTube. I want to be able to have these discussions with moderates and Democrats, and maybe there's some middle ground here, maybe there is. But at any rate, so let's get going here. The second half of the interview, I thought there was maybe 2 points. He gets really down in the weeds of the virus and the mechanics of how the virus works and spike proteins and things like that. And I just, one of the more important things I think he pointed out a couple different places was that the medical industry, the hospitals, the doctors, they have an incentive to exaggerate COVID, to keep this thing going, that they're getting paid by the government every time they have a COVID case. I didn't know that was, I suspected that was the case, but and again, this is one of the reasons why I think Dr. Malone is generating a buzz. It's a combination of things. It's Joe Rogan. He generates such a huge number of views that whoever's on his program, people notice because, they just notice. They're there to see Rogan and they're going to pay attention to whoever the guest is. And Malone, you can't say the guy's not qualified. He has just as many alphabet soup degrees behind his name as all the lockdown East doctors that are calling for vax mandates and triple vax and boosters and lockdowns and distancing and all this other stuff. So, you can't just dismiss the guy out of hand. I know that that's what basically is happening, in that you don't hear from these guys because the tech monopoly, the media monopoly, has been very successful in just shunting these guys into a corner. And, if a esteemed doctor who knows what he's talking about talks in a forest and no one's there to hear it, hey, win-win for the guy that threw him in the forest. But so he's pointing out now that, hey, the medical, big med, big pharma, big hospitals, the doctors, they all have an incentive here to keep this thing going, That the CDC guidelines are that if you go in there and you've got COVID, along with any other number of maladies, hey, you get checked off as a COVID. Now, that may not be necessarily your main thing that's wrong with you, but you're listed as COVID. So that I thought was significant. And then, of course, mass formation psychosis. That's when at the end of the interview, he starts to get into that. And I'm with him here. Now, one thing I thought was interesting is that of all his degrees and whatnot behind his name, none of them really translate to this type of analysis. In other words, well, you're a very good virologist and immunization guy and all these other big words, but you're not really trained in this sort of thing. But clearly you're a smart guy, so it sounds authoritative when you come through with mass formation psychosis. Now let me stop there for a moment while it's at the top of my mind. I actually do know how to pronounce the word philanthropic, philanthropy. That was a word I was stumbling over in the first episode. One of my subscribers helped me. I know the word. And she pointed it out to me. It's just I don't use these big words. I know these big words. I read them. I very rarely speak them. I don't say to my wife, "Dear, wouldn't it be good if we did some more philanthropic things this year?" Where we hang out, at the Douglasville Hotel, at the Carlos, philanthropy is when I buy you a beer or you buy me a beer. That's philanthropy. That's our type of philanthropy. So, we're not organizing foundations or things like that. But anyway, philanthropic, that's the word I could not come up with. At any rate, back to Malone and his mass formation psychosis. I'll say this as somebody who is somewhat trained in this sort of thing. I do have a degree in political science. I do have a degree in history. And I think he's spot on with this mass psychosis diagnosis that I would argue this did not just start with COVID. I would kind of pin this down to Trump. In other words, around 2016, the media brainwashed half the country that Trump is the devil and anyone that follows him or votes for him or supports him are his worshipers. It's crazy. It's crazy. the media was successful enough to convince people, and those people are still brainwashed. 2 years after 2 years of Russia hoax, a report comes out and basically says there's no hoax. And then every piece of evidence subsequent to that says there's no hoax. And these people still believe that Russia somehow controls or runs Trump. It's like you're, as Malone says, these people can be led anywhere at this point. And, I think pretty much the lockdownistas, I just came up with that word and I like it, so I'm using it over and over again. But these people, the people that want the world to be shut down because of COVID forevermore until there's never one more COVID case, they're pretty much Democrats. They're pretty much Democrats. Or possibly suburban Republicans, maybe. There's very few people out in the country that are bent out of shape about COVID. Even the elderly people in the country are just kind of like, whatever. That's just city folk talk. I mean, I get a better chance of getting caught in the gears of a combine than getting this COVID. That's how we country people think. So I think that the Trump brainwashed flock, it's pretty much the same people that are in the COVID camps that are going crazy about this COVID stuff. So it's not good. And, another thing I would tell you, he compares it to Germany. Let's not forget, they didn't go nuts in Germany until they got hungry. In other words, Hitler was around for a while. Hitler didn't just appear on the scene in 1933. Hitler had been on the scene for a good 10 years prior to that. And he really wasn't gaining much traction at all up until the Great Depression. That's when poverty, frankly, I don't think most people, hell, damn near all the people in this country have never seen poverty like that. There's a handful of survivors, handful of old people that lived through the Depression. They're still alive. My parents are two of them, and they're still alive. And you just have no idea what that is. Most people just have no idea. So now people in Germany are starving, literally starving. And here comes this, what's the word I'm looking for? Philanthropic. No, that's not it. This fake messiah, this devil in disguise, coming out to tell you that he's going to save you all. Only he can do it. And you're ready to believe anything because you're hungry. And you're looking for somebody to blame. And of course, he gave them the Jews and threw in some, anybody that wasn't German. In other words, those French, they're making us pay war reparations, bastards. And you know what's in France? Jewish people are in France, and that sort of thing. And it just went from there. So all bad, of course. Now, could that happen here? Absolutely. I think there's definitely a possibility of a severe recession, maybe worse than we've ever seen since the Great Depression. The economy's not good. The economy is swimming in debt. And I think it's only going to take a couple black swan events to push it over the edge, and we will have some kind of horrific economic conditions. And then, good Lord, Katie barred the door, what happens then? So, the mass formation psychosis, that's kind of why I'm here on YouTube. I want to try to get through to some of these people that are walking around in a daze, that just have no idea, what's going on right now. And it's not just in this country. That's the really scary part. This is a worldwide phenomena. This is going on everywhere. That's part of why I'm agitated. It's like, well, I can't go anywhere. In other words, if the United States gets lost to this authoritarian mania, where do I go? I can't go to France. I can't go to Israel. I can't go to Australia. I can't go to Germany. I mean, these are all places that have pretty much drawn the line that we're authoritarian. We're going to tell you what to do, and you have no freedom. And it's falling down on basically, to me, class lines, which really is nothing surprising and nothing new. Yeah, that's been going on probably since the Stone Ages. The people that have are trying to gang up on the people that don't have. And I think that's part of why a lot of this racial stuff has been ginned up here in the past few years, to try to divide the don't haves. So if they can keep the don't haves feuding amongst ourselves, well, then the elites can, do what they want to do. And right now they're doing it. This is a point Malone made in the interview, is that everything big right now is merging together. All the interests of big, and fill in the blank behind it. Big government, big unions, big banks, big corporations, big law firms, big law, big education, teachers unions, all this big, all the interests of big seem to be starting to coincide. So big tech, everything like that, it's all going in the same direction. And that's towards, you do what we're telling you to do, small little inconvenient, unvaccinated person, or we're going to make your life miserable, among other things. So, this is definitely something that I have observed. It's nice to see somebody else come out with this and explain it and have people go, wow, yeah, that's important. I hadn't thought of that. It's like, yes, good. I could say it and no one listens to me. But then the esteemed Dr. Malone says it and everybody goes, oh, that's something to think about here. Well, gee, I didn't notice that we were losing our freedoms. It's like, are you kidding me? Have you looked around lately? But so these are important points that he made. Now I want to circle back. That's a Sasky term, isn't it? Is that how you pronounce her name? The mouthpiece for Joe Biden, this press secretary. I want to come back to a point that Malone made in the first part of the interview, probably the most shocking thing that I had heard in the whole interview. And that was where he had said he thought, very good modeling that shows 500,000 people are dead who should not be dead if the United States government would have allowed or not restricted the use of hydrochloroquine and ivermectin. So right there, it's like, that's a lot of dead people. What's that mean? And again, this is a guy with a lot of esteemed degrees behind his name. Clearly, this is a peer of the esteemed Anthony Fauci and his people. He's not just some guy. And he's saying that the policies these guys are following have killed a lot of people. And that made me think. It's like, the argument that I wanted to have so many months, years ago now. We're coming up on the second birthday of this goddamn thing, Back when it all started, the argument I wanted to have was, all right, you guys want to lock down the world, but at what cost? In other words, freedom's not free. In other words, didn't Jefferson say that the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots from time to time, and words to that effect? We fought wars in this country to maintain our freedom, and now we're just going to give it up, just give it over? Well, you want to kill people. You want to kill grandma. And it was such a hue and cry about how we wanted to kill everybody, us libertarians, us freedom lovers. Well, we just kind of sat down and went, okay, all right, we'll do it your way. sure, I don't want to kill grandma. And I can put up with this stuff for a little bit, right? It's just a little bit just to stop what was it? Flatten the curve or stop the spread. I can put up with it for a little while. You know what you're doing, right? I mean, your way is going to work, right? And so we never did really have that conversation. But now here, almost 2 years into it, I would say the terms of argument are starting to change a little bit. Despite the government, despite YouTube, despite Google, despite Twitter's best efforts to hide the facts about what's been going on out there, it's starting to become painfully obvious to everybody that this lockdown theory, this shut down the world theory hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. And we're starting to, get tired of it. I think I speak for, I know I speak for myself, but the majority of people don't want vaccination mandates. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. Your main argument, lockdownistas, is that you would have saved so many lives. Well, would you have? Here's Dr. Malone saying, you guys killed 500,000 people with your ridiculous restrictions on these cheap drugs. Well, and your argument is, well, we didn't think they'd work, which, that rings, a cynical person might say, or you just knew you'd make a shitload more money, big pharma, which greases the wheels of big government, among other things. You guys knew you'd make a lot more money forcing people to use the expensive drugs and the vaccinations without end. There's a cash cow without end. So what is it? Well, okay, I'll take you at your word. You guys didn't think it would work. Well, at a certain point, does it matter? I mean, this isn't working. People keep dying of this thing. And, you guys just keep running the same playbook. Are we allowed to talk about alternatives now, or are you just going to censor us? You're just going to shout down any dissent whatsoever. I mean, to me, that speaks for itself, that you don't have a very good argument if your go-to maneuver is to just shut us up, just cancel us, just yank us off your platforms. Here's I just made a little list here. Let's see. Originally we couldn't say this even came from China. We were not allowed to say that at all. Now I think that's something that we could say. I think that the big tech platforms now allow us to say, yeah, it probably originated in China. Furthermore, it probably is man-made. In other words, the virus that pretty much came from Wuhan, where there's a class 4 laboratory that handles these kind of viruses. It came from there. Maybe, just maybe, it came from the laboratory. I mean, what are the chances that this type of a virus originated right next to a laboratory that handles this type of virus? It didn't come from Vladivostok. It didn't come from Constantinople. It came from Wuhan. I mean, come on, that's not a coincidence. So, we weren't allowed to say that, many years or a year and a half ago. Now I think, the president himself has intimated this. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. So, there's one thing. These lockdowns, I mean, they haven't worked. I mean, you look at states that were strictly locked down, and then you look at a state like Florida, and they got numbers that are damn near exactly the same. So how can you say the lockdowns work? The vaccinated people, you couldn't say that vaccinated people transmit the disease. Well, now clearly they do. I mean, it's obvious to everybody. They transmit it just like everybody else does. What else we got here? The masks. For every study you show that these stupid masks work, I can show you a study that they don't work. In fact, you just had one of your own damn people on CNN, a clear leftist doctor, saying my little cloth mask here, doesn't work. That she says, we all know that's all kind of theater and it doesn't work. She said this on CNN. Now, of course, her point was that I should be forced to wear the N95 or whatever the, welding mask face shields. But this is something we all knew from the beginning, but not allowed to say it. Our argument is getting stronger and stronger. And, are we allowed to discuss this? Are we allowed to talk about alternative ways to go here? This is what's driving me crazy. Again, I fully expect YouTube to yank this video down. I don't think they should. I don't think I've said anything out of bounds here. Here's a Democrat talking point that I saw just now, and I thought, that's interesting. And this point was made on my channel by my Democrat friend who posted a lot of points about Kyle Rittenhouse and that jury verdict. And he doesn't, I don't think he realizes how much time it takes to cover these points in a video. He wanted it all covered. He had he had more than that. He had 8 hours worth of topics to discuss in one comment. And I thought, it'd be an 8-hour video. But anyway, I'm going to circle back to your point now, Mr. Hall, about should we make the unvaccinated people, should we make them pay more in insurance premiums? Maybe it's worth discussing. You're assuming, of course, that we still have a capitalist health system. I'm not so sure we do. In other words, one of Malone's points in the interview is that any doctor that is bucking the orthodoxy, the lockdown, the prescribed treatment, the you've got to be hospitalized, etc. Any guy is bucking that and wants to prescribe off-label treatments, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, those guys are being attacked. They're being canceled. In other words, the powers that be, big pharma, big hospitals, are attacking those guys. They're trying to get their licenses yanked. So I don't think that's a capitalist health system. Now we're into, what we were complaining about 12 years ago, Obamacare. It's like, here we go, socialized medicine. The government's going to tell us when and where we can get our medicine. And we're kind of there now, I think. So, in a capitalist system, sure. I mean, you could have an insurance company say, you know what, I think you're just going to cost me money, Mr. Unvaccinated person. I got to charge you more. And sorry, you can go somewhere else if you like, except now there's hardly any place to go because the government has forced half these insurance companies out of the health business. No one will insure you. But, in a real capitalist system, I'd be fine with that. Sure, charge me more. I'll go somewhere else and see if I can find a better rate somewhere else. Now I'm not sure I buy your argument that the unvaccinated are such a cost on the system. I'm not even sure what that means. I mean, I guess, again, we're back to the system being the government because they generally are bearing all the costs of these health costs, it seems. That's not capitalism, that's socialism, and we're against that here in this barn. But are they? In other words, the hospitals are overflowing with sick, unvaccinated people. Maybe. I don't know, maybe. I know some of those people in that hospital are people that are vaccinated that have gotten sick, and that's happening all over the place with this Omicron, that they're getting it. Vaccinated people are getting the COVID. Now, I don't think it's as severe as how to say this correctly so I don't get canceled. I don't believe that a vaccinated person catching Omicron has as much chance to get really sick as an unvaccinated person. But I do think there are a lot of vaccinated Karens that are running to the hospital as soon as they take their little at-home test. Holy shit, I'm positive. What do we do? Well, you feel sick? Well, not really. Well, then the answer is do nothing. Maybe call your family doctor. Don't run to the emergency room. But I know that's happening. So how many of them are jamming up the hospitals? I asked an insider, friend of the program, who works at a hospital. I said, how are the numbers at your hospital? Oh, they're fine. They're holding steady. We're not overrun. That's an anecdotal story there for you, but that was the answer I got. So, I don't know there's this giant wave choking, killing people of unvaccinated people taking up every moment of a medical profession's time, and they don't have time to get that broken leg or that brain transplant or whatever. I mean, the other thing is then, of course, you're going around firing people. You're firing unvaccinated people that work in these hospitals. Well, how do you square that? That you're worried about providing health care for everybody, but then you're firing the unvaccinated people? That doesn't make any damn sense. So, we're 100% against the vaccination mandates. Speaking of that, I've mentioned that. I'll move into that because I want to talk. Big day, Friday. That's the day that the court case is going to be heard at the Supreme Court. Interesting. I believe the decision's already been made. I just don't know what it is. These justices have had plenty of time to study the case law and whatnot. And I think the questions, they schedule an hour to question the attorneys representing each side. Why do we even do this for? I mean, it's all for show, I almost think. I can't imagine one of these attorneys representing, I don't know, let's just say the unvaccinated people, talking to Judge Sotomayor and her saying, question, 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 question. And then that attorney go, well, yes. And he speaks like Charles Darrow at the top of his game, and Sotomayor go, that's very interesting. I'm going to change the way I think, and I'm going to vote in your favor. I just think that would not happen. That would not happen, does not happen. I believe there's a high table. You ever see the John Wick movies? John Wick's an assassin. He belongs to some world guild of assassins, and they have their rules, and the guild of assassins is controlled by a high table. The high table is all powerful. And I think there is a high table in this country. Who sits at the high table? I would say probably Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice, certainly McConnell, Schumer, the Senate majority minority leaders, Pelosi, House Speaker of the House, whoever the president's representative is. Normally it'd be the president, but since we don't really have one, we have a mush-brained idiot. So probably Jill Biden is the high table representative of the White House. I oddly enough, I think that the White House wants this thing to get struck down, and I think probably Mitch McConnell wants the thing to go through, that he wants the vaccination mandates. And now that you're saying that doesn't make sense, I thought the Republicans were against it. Well, they should be against it. They absolutely should be. I'm against it, but we're talking old school hardball politics here. Rule in politics is when your enemy's destroying himself, let him. And that's kind of where I think McConnell's at. In other words, he knows if this mandate goes through, it is going to cause such a goddamn unholy mess in this country that it's going to get laid at the Democrats' feet because they're responsible for it. No matter how much the Democrats try to spin, lie, get out of it, the unholy mess caused by these vaccination mandates is going to get laid at the Democrats' feet, and they are going to get swept out of Congress for a good 10 years probably. It'll be such a big wave of Republicans. Now, is that worth it? Hell no, not to me, because it's a mess, and it's an avoidable mess. People are going to get hurt badly. Regular people like you and me are going to get hurt badly by these vaccination mandates. And there's no goddamn reason for it. They won't work. They're not going to slow the COVID spread or save lives. It's pointless. It's going to divide the country even more and make bloodshed, not from COVID, but from you and I punching each other. It's just, it's just something I pray to God that the courts stop it, just because it's just a needless step towards civil war, basically. It's a big step towards, we're in a cold civil war right now, and it's not a United States, it's a global civil war. And as I pointed out, it's going on between the haves and the have-nots. And sooner or later, the way it keeps going, it's going to break out into open warfare, the way it's going. But it's not too late. We can turn it around. It can be turned around. But, you keep pushing these foolish mandates, sooner or later, that's going to cause people to get hungry. And what did I point out to you happened in the 30s when people got hungry? That's when shit got real. And that's when things really got bad. So, a good economy, it's not just, oh, hey, I got enough money to buy the new PS Station, Game Boy, whatever the hell. It's you can actually feed your family. There are people in this country who can't feed their families. And there's just going to be more and more of them. The more and more we go down this bad economic vaccination mandate path. So let's hope the Supreme Court shuts it down. Let's see what else we got here. It's probably all I got here. Like I said, I keep coming back to the number 500,000. That's somewhere, there's a quote, and I think it's from Mao Zedong about numbers, where, if you kill enough people, it's just a statistic, that after a while, it's like nobody notices. And it almost feels like that. It's like, this guy's an esteemed professor, doctor, let's say doctor, not professor. He's probably both, is alleging that the government, through mismanagement, whether it be intentional or not, has killed 500,000 Americans. I mean, what is that? That's 10 times Vietnam. I mean, as bad as Vietnam was, and I know I have one good friend of the program who's a moderate Democrat who brings up Vietnam being the worst policy decision in our lifetimes, and it's hard to argue with that. Well, this is 10 times that. So, can we even talk about this? That's the thing that's just insane, is that I make a video like this and I think to myself, all right, how long will that one be up for? An hour? 3 hours? When I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll get the little note there with the referee. They have this cute little graphic YouTube does with a referee throwing a flag, like it's just some cavalier deal, as if, limiting free speech is just some game or something. And this is one of the most esteemed professors who clearly knows his stuff, and YouTube feels it necessary to censor what this guy's saying. Where is that going? Where are we now? I mean, where are we right now? That's what you got to ask yourself. What country am I in? Is this the same country I grew up in? I would argue it's not. It's not. I don't know when it switched. Did it switch in the last year, the last 2 years, the last 10 years? What happened? But when we can't freely speak, if we have to worry about being canceled, being shunned, being ruined, if we say wrong speak, this is not right. And that's why I'm here. Eric Arnold, I'm in the barn, and that's who I am. Hey, like I said, all the people that stopped by for the previous video, I appreciate you. You know, I'm out here risking getting canceled. At least let me do it in front of 100 people rather than 10 people. I appreciate the people that are there, that comment, hit the like button. Hey, go nuts, subscribe. You know, if there's a channel to subscribe to next week. And there'll be more content if they allow me to do it. If not, there won't be, and I'll be over on Rumble. I am on Rumble. Politics Barn, all one word. Politics Barn. That's where we're at on Rumble. But hey, thanks for being here. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech, and we'll talk again.